Hello and welcome back, third intermediate students. Today we have another lesson from Upstream 3, Unit 2. Our lesson is 2C on page 20, titled Nothing Compares. At the end of this lesson, the student will be able to identify comparative and superlative forms, use comparative and superlative in sentences, and write a paragraph using comparative and superlative forms. Now, let's start with task 1. We have a quiz here. Read it and try to answer the questions. You have 2 minutes to do so. Okay, let's check our answers together. Number 1, which is bigger in size? Which one is more modern? Which has healthier life? Which is quieter? Which has more expensive shops? Which has narrower roads? Now, let's head off to task number 2. We're going to circle the comparative adjectives in this quiz. We have bigger, more modern, healthier, quieter, more expensive, and narrower. Can you use comparative form to write 2 sentences? You have 1 minute to do so. Now, these are 2 examples that you can use to check your answers. Number 1, a city is bigger than a village. Number 2, life in the village is healthier than in the city. Now, We use the comparative to compare between two nouns. Here are our examples. Now, this is the form. The comparative form consists of noun number 1. So here we have life in the city. It holds the place of noun number 1. Then, depending on the noun, you write is or are. Here we have life in the city, so we put is. Then you write the comparative adjective. Since we have expensive, which is a long adjective, we write more before it. So more expensive. You write than, then noun number 2, which holds its place here in the village. The second example, we have noun number 1, the air in the village. Then we have is. Our comparative adjective is healthier. We write than, then noun number 2 in the city. So, comparative adjectives. If it's a short adjective, we add the suffix er. So here, big becomes bigger. Easy, we replace the y with an I, then we write er. It becomes easier, and new becomes newer. If it's a long adjective, then before the adjective, you write more or less. More expensive or less expensive. Now, for the superlative form, we use it to compare two nouns or more. Superlative adjectives are used to describe the lower or least state in adjectives. Now, here we have two examples, and this is the superlative form. We have the first noun. Here we have the streets. Then you write is or are depending on the noun. Since the streets are plural, we write are. And you put the superlative form of the adjective, and here we have the narrowest. This building, this is the noun. Since it's singular, we write is, and then we put the superlative form, the most modern one. Now, if it's a short adjective, again, you just add the suffix est. So big becomes biggest. Easy, you replace the y with an I, then you add est, so it becomes easiest, and new becomes newest. If it's a long adjective, before the adjective you write most or least, and then you say most expensive or the least expensive. Now, to task number 3. Now that we've established the comparatives and superlatives, we're going to use these adjectives to compare a village to a city. You may use the adjectives here to do so. We have busy, crowded, congested, traditional, modern, industrial, local, tree-lined, expensive, comfortable, spacious, fast food, elegant, isolated, corner, narrow, quiet, clean, pretty, wide, popular, terraced, small, semi-detached, large, and cheap. You have 2 minutes to write as many sentences as you want using these adjectives. Now, here are some examples. The streets in the city are busier and more crowded than the ones in the village. The shops in the city are more popular than the ones in the village. The restaurants in the village are cheaper than the ones in the city. Life in the village is the quietest. The city is larger than the village. Now, congratulations on completing the task. Let's go to task number 4. Now that we've written sentences and we've identified the comparative and superlative forms, we're going to use that in writing a paragraph. You're going to write a paragraph comparing life in the city to life in the village. You have to include these points. Tell me about the size of both. Which one is larger? Which one is smaller? Talk about the streets, whether they are narrow or wide. Mention the malls and schools, which has more facilities and which has less. Talk about life itself there, which is cleaner and which is healthier. And mention the nature, which has green and peaceful nature. And talk about the population, which has more people and which has less people. You have 15 minutes to complete your writing task. Now that you've finished, look at the criteria here and check your work. You must have written about all the points mentioned. We make sure that you've written in a paragraph, and your paragraph is between 120 words to 140 words. Make sure to use correct punctuation marks and the right capitalization, and use correct spelling. Here is a suggested answer of how your paragraph should be. Life in the village is more peaceful and quieter than in the city. As the village is smaller than the city, its population is less. I would love to live in the village one day because it's calmer, more relaxing, and the neighbors are friendlier. There are less facilities in the village than in the city. The green nature in the village is the most beautiful, and this makes it the healthiest place to live in. Not only are there more schools and universities in the city than in the village, but there are also many malls, which I would love to shop at, because they are more modern than the ones in the village. Although life in the city is much easier, I prefer to live in the village to have a more peaceful life and enjoy the nature. Now, thank you so much. Good luck and goodbye.